Oh my God, I'm so
Well,
sorry.
Mary Beth, do you want to do
And are we gonna
do you want to do
yes.
introductions this time?
Yeah. Let's do take
Take
two.
two.
Let me
All
collect
right.
myself.
We'll
I'm
remember
sorry.
this one, won't we?
Yeah, we will remember this one for a long time because that was a talk about comedy of errors. That's one right there. Um, so sorry to everybody that was waiting there for 45 minutes as we were talking, but stupid me. There's multiple buttons and I hit the stream button and I didn't hit the live button. So that's on me. I apologize. But anyway, Tanya did such a good job with the intros. I might have her do it again. But I will start here and say thanks everybody for being here. Sorry about the wait. And we have a great panel today who I guess we could say we had a trial run with this. So now we can really go through the stories. but they're our friends, Margaret, Les, and Ian from the Southern Hemisphere. So this is really cool because they're here to talk about, chasing the Southern Hemisphere, which is different than, what we always talk about over here. But they have some cool stories and how they got into it and, just some of the differences. And as you'll find out when we do this for take two, they're geomagnetically, they're kind of similar to Minneapolis in some of the spots. So it's a pretty good location to see it. But anyway, now that I'm calming down here, I'll give it over to Tanya to do the official intros.
Official introduction. So we have a great representation of the Southern Hemisphere. Usually it's three of us, and we typically cover our Aurora Borealis, which is Northern Lights. But today we have Margaret, Les, and Ian from Southern Hemisphere. So Margaret migrated to Australia from United States, and she does have a story about that. She came with her husband and small daughter. She moved around and finally settled in Tasmania. And Margaret, when was your first aurora?
The first aurora I ever saw was in 1997. My daughter and I were traveling south from Launceston, which is in the north of the state. And we suddenly saw in the very, very dark area a glow on the horizon. And of course, this was either aliens landing or Hobart had been nuked or an aurora. And so it was fortunately an aurora. We jumped out of the car. We were very excited. There was lots of screaming because I have to say, I love the movement of the aurora, which is very difficult to capture or relay about because it's just, to me, that's the joy of it. But anyway, so that was it. And I decided I had to know from then on when there was going to be an aurora, but that proved very difficult because there was no phone chain or anything available at the time. And I just couldn't believe it. And probably most of you know what it's like waking up in the morning and finding out there was an aurora the night before and you missed it. So as soon as I got a social media account, I realized that was an excellent way to let people know that the one was being seen right now, which is really, no substitute for that.
All right. Thank you, Margaret. We also have Ian, who has been amateur astronomer and astrophotographer for a very long time. He's joining us from North Island. Is that correct, Ian?
Yeah.
Excellent. And he is actually one of the expert chasers in Aurora Australis, New Zealand, and absolutely fantastic when it comes to knowledge about geomagnetic events such as aurora. So, Ian, do you want to share your first aurora story with us?
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. I started off just doing astronomy as such when I was 16, and I think I said that I never had any expectation of ever seeing the aurora because I didn't know of anybody that had seen one from where I live in the North Island, the lower North Island. I thought maybe the bottom of the South Island they might see something. And so about 4 years into it, we were up at our local observatory, and these strange beams of light, these rays appeared behind the trees in the south. And luckily I was standing next to an ex-Canadian, and he recognised it for what it was, which was an Aurora. And we had 2 more in the space of just a week, which really got us all going. And then, but we didn't know much about it, and we only ever really saw the Aurora when we were out doing something else, when we were out either using telescopes or taking photographs. And that continued probably for another, nearly 2 decades until the internet came along. And then during cycle 23, we were able to send observations into a forum. So it was all written, and people were still doing, written descriptions, and then you started paying attention to what people could see at different latitudes. And that's when I started realizing the difference related to the magnetic latitude. So after I'd seen those early Aurora, then I started doing photography probably about 1989. And like I said, you learn off all the photos that you take. It's a great way to, and especially now with digital, because digital just gives you sheer volume, and you can run sequences, and you can see things interacting and changing in the whole 9 yards. Whereas back in the days, the film, we had to be a little bit more thrifty is the word, because it costs you more than what it does now with digital. All you got to worry about is keeping your batteries up and making sure you got plenty of room in the memory stick. But that's so the Aurora is from where I live. We probably have about a 5-year hiatus where, apart from some visual stuff you can pick up on camera, there's not a lot of visual stuff goes on during the solar minimum. So it really is peaks and troughs for us. But I think we're sort of like, the bellwether station where if we can see it, then it must be pretty good. Obviously down south, they see it a hell of a lot better. And that's always intrigued me. But as I said, I've been down the south probably 20 times in the last 40 years, and I've never seen an Aurora. So I'm just jinxed that way, I'm afraid. But it's this cycle's been a real blessing after, when the digital age come along during cycle 24, and it was so weak, everybody was starting to think that you can only pick the Aurora up with a camera. And luckily this time around, and also the color, a lot of people said, oh, you can't see color, but it's all about the solar strength. And I'm really, really grateful to see that all these people that started during cycle 24 are now, believers. And after I said, oh no, you can see the colors, it's just the sun's got to be more active and stronger than what it has been, and then you'll start seeing the color, and sometimes really, really vivid too. So that's been a real treat to see people, actually see that. And then on top of it, these big KP8 and 9 storms that have come along that have put Aurora right over people's heads. And that's the thing to remind people, especially Tasmania and the South Island, is don't forget to look up, because there's so much going on. You can miss some of the most spectacular stuff is actually right overhead. So hopefully we're going to get a few more storms before this cycle peters out at the end of the decade. So still plenty to keep looking forward to.
All right, thank you. So, and we also have Les, who lives actually closer to where Aurora happens. So he lives on the South Island, which is closer to the southern geomagnetic pole. He retired from IT in 2021 and also worked on a poultry farm. So, hi, Andy. You got a colleague here. But Les actually has been very active in the Aurora chasing community in Aurora Australis, New Zealand, and he is driving a lot of effort to educate fellow chasers about current conditions and prospects of Aurora happening in the upcoming night. So, Les, when was your first Aurora and how did you get hooked?
Thank you, Tanya. I can't quite remember, but it was 9th of October 2013. I just travelled a couple of k's from home down to the local estuary. I had a D300 at that stage with a 18 to 200 lens, which was at f3.5 to 5.6, which these days I wouldn't even consider using. But that was all I had. So like a lot of people, you've got to give it a go. So anyway, I turned up at the local estuary. There were 2 or 3 other people there. I think I heard it word of mouth about Aurora, and I just attempted to take photos. And I did a wee bit of research or inquiry on the internet and stuff before I went there. So I had some idea of what sort of settings I had to use. So it was really trial and error. My first photo, which is what I'm looking at the moment, is, yeah, pretty rough, but it's nice to have a rough one. And I keep some of those because for memories and sake, because that was my first one. So that's really how I started, and I wanted to get to learn more. And it was after chasing, some nights you didn't have any luck, other nights you did. And I'm going, how can I make this better, more positive, and get better at working out when I should chase it and not waste my time standing out in the cold, as Ian might put it. So that was me.
All right. So I'm actually going to share a few maps that Ian made for Aurora Australis community. And this is the geomagnetic latitudes. So even though geographically we're talking about Australia and Tasmania being farther north, geomagnetically they're fairly similar to where Minneapolis would be. At least 53 degrees south would be geomagnetically equivalent. So this is geomagnetic latitude, not geographic latitude. So that would be very similar to Minneapolis, and that kind of gives you an idea of how it's going to work out for Aurora and what kind of strength of the storm you need to actually get Aurora in your backyard, quite literally. So this is South Australia and Southwestern Australia. It's the same. It's less geomagnetically favorable, but definitely has potential. And finally, New Zealand. So we're talking about what roughly similar to UK to some degree. And yeah, definitely we're talking about Michigan, Minnesota. So fairly, at least for me, that's a fairly decent reference because I know what kind of solar wind data I need to see to get Aurora in my location. So I'll expect it's going to be somewhat similar for Aurora in the southern sky if I am down under in Australia or New Zealand. So after that geography lesson,
Yes.
let's talk about auroral forms that you actually see in the southern sky over there. And how does that relate to different constellations? Because we definitely see a very different sky. We may see same auroral forms, but our sky is different. So what kind of things have you seen? Margaret, do you want to start?
Yes. I mean, we always think about the Gannon storm, I guess, when we think about, a night when the sky was just completely crazy. I happened to be in a location with 10 grandchildren where we had a view of the entire sky. And so the entire sky was covered with aurora. I think there was a double SAR, if I remember correctly, like completely in the wrong direction. It was just amazing. There was absolutely crazy. I felt like everything I had ever heard of was going on at the sky all at once, including dunes, which Michael Honeycull had written about in the newest edition of my book, but I had really no idea what he was talking about. So it was pretty exciting seeing that sort of overlaid over all the other craziness. And other events that have made a big impression on me were the first time I saw Steve, which was in 2013 before it was called Steve. And other than that, in December 2022, I got to see giant blue rays. And my advice about seeing giant blue rays and any other subaraural phenomena is to look around. Don't just concentrate on the Aurora in front of you, which may not be very tall or exciting at the time, but there could be something happening outside that. So it always pays to look around and maybe take a few shots. The giant blue rays I saw were like a big, wide, dark gray smudge. It was not easily visible, but when photographed, it was obviously quite blue. And that was pretty exciting. So, Les?
I've seen probably the same, something fairly similar to Margaret. Everything from diffuse auroras to the arc to rays, which we had this morning, which were quite pretty but very brief. And I've seen SAR arcs and Steve, or continuum. I get a little bit confused between continuum and Steve because they look very similar. So I still haven't defined which yet, but I think I know what Steve is, but I just don't know where the switchover is on those two. Seen blobs, number of various strange things, and as Margaret says, you've got to keep looking around, otherwise you miss them. That's happened to me out in the field. I've been with other people, and I'll be busy photographing the Aurora and taking some bits and pieces, and somebody will say, "Oh, there's a SAR arc going overhead." And I go, "Is it? Where?" "Oh, up there." Okay. So you get carried away with that. I mean, I've had SAR arc right over the top of my head recently, this year. And of course, with the May 2024 one, it was totally north, with the Aurora south, and we had Corona above head, and had that probably 4 or 5 times in my shooting career for Aurora. I think I've had about 3 of those this year. So that's, it's really amazing, and it's getting those interesting parts, or new parts, new to you anyway, really does make it fun. And having to sit down and go through every image carefully on the computer when you get home, it's amazing what you find. So if it wasn't for that, like film days, and what Ian has done, film days, I can imagine it was a lot harder because you only shoot every so many shots without running out of film. But digital, we just keep going with power banks and large memory cards, no problem. Over to you, Ian.
Yeah, well, probably one of the earliest, strangest things I ever saw was what we called a proton arc back in it was on Anzac Day 1982, and for people outside of Australasia, Anzac Day is the day we remember. It's a bit like Memorial Day in November, remembering a famous campaign from World War One. Anyway, this one night I was up there watching the Aurora, and it was a bit like what Margaret was saying about the GBRs, the giant Blu-rays. You're sort of watching the display, and then suddenly these 2 pillars of sort of grey light appeared in the mid sky, and then started moving down, way more dynamic than anything else I'd ever seen. And so that was really unique, and it wasn't a super major storm, but it was just, it could show you got to, like Liz said, you just got to look around, because there's things that happen all the time. But more recently, the big May storm last year, 2024, we not only had Steve, but we had Steve forming into broken rays that actually created a corona for the top of the South Island, so a little bit just south of me. So we missed out on that, but it was still very spectacular, and it was overlaying the SAR arc at the same time. And then right in the middle of it, we had a thing that there's probably a few contenders of what it could be. I likened it to the Ragda that I've seen in other pictures from the Northern Hemisphere and other big storms. And it only lasted 1 minute, but there were more through the night that were recorded elsewhere. So on top of everything else that was going on with multiple ray bands that had lifted off the horizon, the big green arc, and then the SAR arc that was going strong all night. Those sort of things really stick in your mind as being completely unusual, in terms that you really only see them during a superstorm or something equivalent, or maybe they tune up on the odd lesser storm, KP7, KP6, for some reason. And that really surprises people when those sort of things happen. So No, there's always something to keep you interested.
That definitely sounds like fun. And of course, we're all aware of how easy it is to get news out at this point with the social media, but um, while it does have its own advantages, there are definitely some disadvantages. And what has your how how did social media affect tourism, and particularly rural tourism, in Tasmania and New Zealand? What have you seen? Margaret,
Well,
do you want to
since Les
start?
is, I
Yeah. Go for it.
yes, obviously, it has had a big effect. Sometimes it's negative because anytime media comes out, with there's going to be this massive aurora and the world is going to end, you know, people have to decide whether they're going to run and hide or actually flood all the beaches. So, and that's unfortunate, as you know. But I think the thing that's concerned me personally more is that we get a lot of tourists from Asia because, that's just seems like the most convenient place for them to come if they're going to chase auroras. And it really breaks my heart because we don't really have aurora tours here. Aurora photographers in Tasmania are very hesitant to take people out if they're not sure there's going to be an aurora. And when is that? You know,
Right.
Aurora Australians do not want to take someone's money and not, you know, pay out or
Deliver.
whatever. So that's just our mentality. And so what happens often is people, especially from Singapore, will come here and they've never seen dark before. So I don't know if you've been to Singapore, but there is no dark.
Right.
Oh.
It's completely lit all the time. And so they come here and they stay in their hotels. They're afraid to leave because they've never been out in the dark. They've never seen dark. They're certainly not going to drive in the dark. And I just find that horrible. So, I don't really know what to do to remedy it. And that's, I suppose, the real difficulty is that, there's no easy solution for them. We try to prepare them as much as possible, saying, you know, you need to have a plan. I'll try to find somebody to help you, but, da da da. So, Les, have you had anything like that similar happen to you? Or I don't know, sort of what your Asian tourism situation's like, or any other tourists that you feel like, you want to give us some info on.
I think we're pretty much the same in New Zealand. We get similar tourist patterns to Tasmania, Australia. And yeah, they will be very curious. They'll put messages up on the post. Some of them even try and message me directly and they'll ask you, is there an aurora tonight? Will I see it in Twizel? Will I see it somewhere else? Of course, you can read my report, can't you? But anyway, I don't have time to answer all of those things that come through. So I have my personal things pretty much locked down. And at one point, my profile was wide open to anybody who wanted to see my photos, which I was happy to do. But then I started getting a lot of nuisance value people wanting to join, and I still do get all these lovely ladies from America and a few other places who want to be friends with me, but they kind of get ignored. They go away. So yeah, tourists are interesting. I think they get the impression that what they see on the screen is what you see by eye, and that's a lot of people. Takes quite a bit of education, and you have to keep at it. Otherwise, people, even in New Zealand, people think it's something that they can just come south and see by eye. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. It doesn't always happen. How strong is it going to be? All of those issues, it's quite an unknown. So if you're a dedicated chaser like myself and a lot of other people, you will start to learn to read the apps and the charts and get a feel for what will assist you in getting to generally capture it in your area rather than see it, because most of the time all we see is brightness in the sky. We can certainly see the rays when they pop up and the brightness and stuff like that, but it's always the camera that does the capturing because of the length of the exposure. Ian.
Yeah, well, we don't suffer too many tourists in our area. It's not renowned for it. But we get a lot of interest from the general public, and again, advising them about, where's the best place to go and things like that. I have some general answers for people who are keen enough to go out. It's but it's like a lot of things with that we've probably through your page, Les, advising people that you come out and things are very active, and then it dies down. That doesn't necessarily mean that the show's over. And there were, I think it might have been the June one or the one in October last year, where people packed it in because the activity dropped right off, and then the second breakup turned up, around 11 o'clock, and everything went ballistic, and all these people are going, oh, why didn't I stick out there? Was because they don't understand that auroras have these, it's like big waves coming in, and if you got a clear night and you got the time, you can stay up and see this repeat right through the night, which I've done many times. And we're pretty loath to put out alerts to the public unless something is going to be really spectacular, like May last year, and a couple of those other ones that turned up, because of that factor of not knowing exactly when the breakup's going to be. You can usually know it's going to be before midnight, or it could actually be happening as soon as it gets dark, and then repeat again as the night goes on. And that's the bit that some people aren't, the days of instant gratification. They want to walk outside and bang, see this massive breakup going on, and then that's it, and then go back to doing whatever they were doing before, and that's their attention span. And other people, well, all us mad Aurora observers, we'll stay up till dawn if there's a good chance we're going to get something, it's going to be worth our while. So it's hard thing to get it across, and the media is they're not too bad in terms of overstating. They tend to exaggerate because that's how they operate, and so you got to try and temper that. We got to the stage in our local astronomy where we used to do all the writing for the newspaper articles to make sure they didn't put down things that would actually be totally stupid, really, but they thought it sounded good, and it's a hard thing to publicise, even when you think something like May 11th last year is on the way. Seeing is believing. It's got to be in front of your face, and we were lucky that day, that night, that the good chunk of the country was clear. And some of the advice that we put out was, if you live near the coast, go out to the beach, get away from light pollution. And in the nature of the way that New Zealand curves, especially the North Island, and on the South Island's east coast, you have unobstructed views across the sea where there are no cities or anything like that. So you're going to get your best views. And that's what we tell people, get away from the city, get away from mountains where clouds might form, and try from there. And we do have light pollution, but it's not massive like in the Northern Hemisphere and a lot of places like Europe and that, where someone was telling me that they went up there, they were lucky to see first magnitude stars, and on a clear night. And, and I walk out my back door and I'm seeing, I can see down to the 7th magnitude at my zenith. And I'm only 20 minutes from a city. So that's the sort of difference that we have. It's the one advantage we do have, but as again, trying to do something for tourists would be fraught with danger. I'm afraid.
Well, probably as far as Aurora go, but there might be room for dark sky tours, because some people just sounds like they never experience it ever in their lives.
Yeah, that is quite popular in New Zealand. I've got friends who do it and do it really well. And again, you don't even have to go far to get away from the light pollution. For people who have never even really seen the dark sky, people see our Milky Way, especially the winter Milky Way from here, with Sagittarius and Scorpius passing through the zenith. They just get blown away. And same in Australia. Imagine going out into the outback when it's really dry and clear. The transparency is amazing, and you just feel like you're out in space, and that's a a thing that's really tangible for people who have never ever seen that.
Right.
And so there are people around doing that. That's easier to do than trying to tee somebody up to see an aurora, though.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of Asians go to Tekapo.
Yeah.
They've got the observatory up there, and they've got tours, and they've got a whole business around it. So they get a lot of people there, so it helps a little bit. But we also get quite a lot of, or not so many now, but we were getting for a while some people that are new to the game wanting to post, is this this going to be an aurora tonight, and they grab an app and it's got great bars, red bars on it and everything else, or some news outfits put an article up and they want to post it. Unfortunately, they get declined.
Yeah. I saw Margaret do the big red donut. Yes, the big red donut.
So that kind of brings us to this question: what are the biggest challenges in day-to-day running of large Facebook groups? Because Margaret, your group where you founded and your admin there is 300,000, and Les is your group is close to 190,000.
That's right. That's correct.
So, Les, do you want to start? What challenges are you facing?
Challenges, getting people to follow rules,
Right.
guidelines, getting them to actually read or even just look around the site. We have a tremendous amount of information written in our guides section, on our files, in our featured sections. It's all there, including a locations map where I've built up a map. In fact, I deleted it once, so I had to rebuild it again. Got a lot of locations points from various aurora chasers, and we've put those locations on the New Zealand map for them to go, whether it's on the coast or inland. So my main aim is to just try and keep the group going, to alert people when there might be a chance of getting an aurora. I don't tend to go overboard. I tend to go on the moderate side of when I report and things like that, and I say maybe. I don't say anything as certain. And I don't use KP because KP is not really relevant. So we use things like quiet, active, storm, and so on, and colors. So which kind of match what various apps and that do. But it's a matter of a balancing act of people who want to join, who don't need to join if all they want is information and to see photos, because it's all open to everybody to see everything and read everything. But I don't know that they actually get that. But anyway, they want to join and they want to throw a comment up or something, but it's a matter of weeding some of the rubbish out. And I'm a bit lucky that I've got somebody who is now, for the last couple of years, has been doing all the applications to join generally. If it gets busy, I help out with that as well. So, but we've got other admins there to do that. And I've just been doing that since I retired. The group was started by Stephen Boss, who's very well known. And I kind of have been sort of running it pretty much, although I still talk to Stephen and we bounce ideas and questions and things about rules and so on from time to time. And he's a good sound check for me if I'm thinking something and maybe I'm not thinking right. So that's all good. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun.
How about you, Margaret?
Yes, with some of the big events that happen, it's a bit of a challenge because with about 400,000 people in the group, we've taken a lot of the steps that Les has. I've got an admin who's amazingly does most of the participation. We have a trick question that if you want to participate, you have to have read the FAQ or you will not be able to answer the question. And so we're able to be spam free pretty much because of that. But yeah, with the big events, the the 400,000 people who are not very active suddenly spring into action, and we get that can get thousands and thousands of photographs all in one day. And I've at the moment it's been pretty much set up that I've got to approve all the posts.
Oh boy.
So
Oh,
yeah, so no, well, the admins do, an amazing job of helping out at that time. But yeah, I'd say that's the biggest challenge. Also, I feel it personally a challenge to keep things, try to keep things interesting when absolutely nothing is happening.
Yes.
How can I creatively say, you never know? You never know. Something, stealthy could occur. And, often it does, or occasionally it does. And because we couldn't see anything coming, I feel a bit bad that, people do miss out under those circumstances. Or occasionally, although I often trust that I'll wake up and check on the situation during the night. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I actually sleep all night.
No
And
way.
then I feel a bit bad. I feel bad that, somehow somebody might have missed something because of that. So, but no, generally, after this amount of time, they pretty much run themselves. And as I said, all the information's there, and you don't have to actually even join the group or participate in the group to read what's there. So, it's not all bad. They've got it there if you want to read.
Well, you guys both got props in the chat about being saints. so, so there you go.
I'll have to turn on the chat.
Yeah. It's like y'all are saints with all the, newbies and everything. Oh yes, the book.
yeah, there we go.
So anybody
Yeah, let's talk-
watching,
Right. So I'm giving away a copy of this book, and it's got to be Australia, New Zealand only, because I've recently had a book let's say, an international book turned back because of tariffs. So if you're interested in possibly getting a free copy of this book, if you will just put the word book in the comments, then I think Mary Beth at some point is going to pick at random somebody.
Yes.
Ta-da! So somewhere in the course of all this, just put the word books, because I'm not assuming that everybody either is interested or may not already have a copy. So we can't just choose from everybody. So
Thank you.
Right. And I'm going to ask for your comment as far as what kind of things tend to work in groups and what kind of things do not work in groups. So it's sort of some feedback for admins as far as how good of a job we should be doing.
I think these two people are doing a fantastic job, considering that it's actually quite mind-boggling, the numbers. If I thought back to 25 years ago, if 100 people were interested in the Aurora, that would have been a lot in New Zealand. So, and I mean, interested enough to get out there and observe and even send in written reports back in those days. But I don't have to, I'm not part of running a couple of Facebook pages of that magnitude, but I did get involved in the GBR one, which came about because of these two pages, where looking at images that are posted from New Zealand, the first GBRs that came up, it was sort of like giant blue ray, but we didn't know much about it because we didn't know where they were in space and time. And then I started noticing that people in Australia were photographing similar things, and when we converted their time to UT, found out they must have been photographing the same thing. And then we were very lucky back in 2017 to get a photograph from New Zealand, one from Victoria, another one from South Australia, and one from my mate Colin Legg, who now lives in Tasmania, way over in Western Australia. And so they were within 10 minutes of each other, which is not bad. And so then I used some of my astronomy software to plot where these things were in the sky for each location, and then get an azimuth bearing, a horizontal bearing around the horizon, and also even a vertical bearing to get to the top, if we can get the top of the thing. And started doing some basic trigonometry, which is real basic, because you're dealing with trying to throw out lines on a geoid rather than just a flat surface. But they intersected down on the edge of Antarctica, and that sort of blew everybody away. So then immediately, the fact that they were like more than 2,000 kilometres south of New Zealand and nearly 4,000 k's from Western Australia, said that these things were big and probably bigger than anything else in the literature. And so that's when we set up the page. And this would never have happened if it wasn't for this type of medium, the social media now, having that ability to talk to each other very quickly in a short space of time and realise that we're, in this particular instance, we were all looking at the same thing across that big broad arc of New Zealand right across to Perth, and it's been done. And of course, you've got way more land mass in the Northern Hemisphere that sits under the oval. But in actual fact, the likes of the GBR is more of a mid-latitude thing, because you don't actually really want to be real close to it. You actually want to be back a bit, quite a way back, and see it. And the only thing we've seen from these, which is still quite perplexing, is that they tend to happen when things are quiet. And in the past, in the days of film, nobody would have been taking photographs when it was quiet. But soon as people got into doing animations and running their cameras sort of like all night, these things started turning up, and they were going, what's that, in that quiet period at 2 a.m. when nobody was looking except for Margaret. And this phenomena turned up. So as for, to me, that would be the biggest bane, would be the newbies coming in asking the same old questions, 400,000 times. Where do I go? What do I do? And like Les said, go and read this. It's all there. All the stuff that's available now it's quite phenomenal, in comparison to what we had 20, 30, 40 years ago, where we had nothing. We just had to be out there, and you were lucky to, if you saw something, or and the weather was right, and then you had no way, you had to run down to a phone box to ring people up. There was no cell phones, there was no internet, so getting the message out was. And again, and the other thing too is you would take a photograph, but you wouldn't see it for a day and a half or something like that before you got the results back. Not like now, where you can actually see the result right in front of you, and take a photo of the back of your camera to pass on the message that, hey, it's happening. And that's the great thing. And so what I've always tried to promote in my time of being heavily involved in the Aurora is to try and get people who live at the lower latitudes into the idea that they can actually see stuff as well. And it won't be the same as what you're going to get from Tasmania or the lower South Island, but it's what you can see from your place. And I think people after May last year suddenly realised, that the top of the North Island is not the limit. And as we've seen from, right up into southern Queensland and Northern Territory, that people in Australia were seeing the Aurora. And so that message is far easier to get out via the social, social media than any other form. You can put it in a book, or you can maybe have it on a TV program, but that's limited. Whereas you just can't beat social media for getting across these sort of messages.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
It's amazing how much of the things can be coordinated when some of the interesting forms are out. And I completely agree that it's not necessarily all super active time when things are at substorm. Some of the more of a quiet time, either before substorm onset or even after, tend to be very interesting, because we don't see Steve until after a substorm goes into recovery. So we have to wait for most of the activity to kind of subside to start to see some of the interesting structures. And pulsating aurora is the same thing, and flaming aurora is the same thing. So it's not just super active time. Everybody wants the big shot of a substorm, but that's not necessarily the most interesting aurora out there. There are different forms, and trying to coordinate with different across a very wide territory, like United States, for example, or New Zealand, Tasmania, and Australia. Social media definitely has an edge. There's really nothing like it out there.
GBRs in, is there an ideal time to try and pick those up in New Zealand? Because at the moment, like, we're in a very short night time. We're getting blue sunlit tips on our rays and that at the moment, and I think, including myself, but a lot of people get confused. They think they've got GBRs when they're not.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I do in our GBR pages when people submit pictures, and whether they be from the Northern Hemisphere or the Southern Hemisphere, the time of the year is critical. So the closer you get to the solstice, which is today, the December solstice in the Southern Hemisphere, the bigger chance there is that the rays are actually going to stick out above the shadow and go blue. And so that's when people, oh, look, I've got big blue rays. But if you look at their photos, those rays are definitely attached to the aurora at the bottom of the picture. What we saw from the GBRs is that they are not related to what's going on in the foreground. And you can see from the animations where the aurora is marching from left to right and the GBRs are going from right to left. And so that there's no real, obviously, connection to them. And what we also found from all that, from the very beginning, for some reason, they tend to appear when things have quietened down. And as I say, that's probably the main reason why they've been missed in the past. There is a possibility, going by what the way that Margaret described her first ones, is that some of those rays have been seen in the past and is described as big grey smudges in the sky, but probably mistakenly identified as part of the aurora that had been going on all night or prior to that. And so now, through photography, that we're actually getting sequencing and timing, and then we're starting to realise that these things are popping up. And unfortunately, they do tend to pop up when things are very quiet, and most people might have either packed it in or just go having a break and not until afterwards that they actually, when they go back through their animation, they actually find them. So and the confusion with what I've called TBRs is just tall blue rays, like the ones I saw in November of 2001, that must have been close to 1,000 kilometres tall, because the base of them was actually overhead at Queenstown, where Steve Voss was, and the tops of them went past my zenith in the lower North Island. So that's massive. So that ability to sort of go in when somebody posts something and say to them, this is the reason why you haven't got what you thought you had, but you've got something pretty good anyway, and keep going, and try and encourage them. And that's what I see my job is, just to try and keep encouraging people to, this is what you've got. Do you realise you've got this over here and that over there? Because a lot of them don't. They don't. They're looking at the main display, and they don't realise they've got other facets and phenomena going on. And because it's all new to them, they're brand new, and so then they start reading up, and then they get more out of it.
Yeah, I shot from blue hour to blue hour this morning, which was just before midnight, out till about 4 o'clock this morning. And I think any rays I had, generally all had blue tips on them.
Yeah. You could just about guarantee from where you are that they're all going to end up looking blue, even at midnight, even at true midnight. In the wintertime, you'll get blue rays on one side just after evening twilight, and then you'll get it again in the morning, but everything through the middle of the night should just stay red or whatever the colours are. And that speaks to the nature of the shadow at the time, the Earth's shadow, which is one of the key players in how all that happens. But the other one too that catches people out is a very rare mixing of the red and the green to get orange. I've seen aurora that have been completely orange the whole time. Might only be 30 minutes worth, but no other colours appear. And that's actually quite rare in my experience, but it can happen, and it was brilliantly orange to the naked eye too. So just so many little tricks and things that happen that keeps you interested.
That is very true. So, question for both Les and Margaret. You do regular updates for the group, and a lot of groups are actually doing that. What is your routine, and what advice would you give potentially to other groups? So, updates for the night. How do you decide what goes there, and how often do you actually update? I know that involves staying up at night sometimes, or sometimes just giving a morning update.
Okay, so basically, I probably wouldn't advise other groups of what I think. I'd probably keep that to myself because I'd probably be wrong. But anyway, I often check the charts and things that I look at, and I sometimes pull up about 30 to 40 different things and just have a gander through them to see what's going on, because I find that, some sites give you different figures and values, and it's purely an interest thing for me. And from glancing at all those different things, including the SWIPSI and NOAA and, Glendale and all the rest of them, GOES and so on, you get a feel for what's going on. But just like the professionals, we can really only see an hour ahead, roughly. Or might have sometimes on a high wind speed, that might only be 40 minutes from the data that we get from the satellite. So we really only can tell you what we think is going to happen in that period based on our experience or what we think we know. And sometimes and often we're not right, but and after that hour's gone, anything can happen. So it's just, I don't know, it's more a gut feel than anything. I had a gut feel for last night, and because it was such a clear night here last night and I hadn't been out for a long time, I went out on the off chance that I might catch something, and I had to wait a while. I went out about just after 11 and it was 3 o'clock in the morning before I got the big one, before it really struck for about 15 minutes. And I did indicate that in last night's report that it could be erratic and it would just appear. You just can't wait at home, because if I'd have waited at home, I would have missed it by the time I got there and got set up. That's really the key point. You have to be prepared to spend some time at it, and it's not just see the figures and then go. And that's why a lot of people miss the Aurora, but anyway, so I might check it again during the day, and often if it's like a Gannon storm, I might check it every couple of hours to see what's going on. But if it's just like at the moment we've got short hours, it's really difficult in the fact that I might put my report out at 9 o'clock, having started at say 8:30 p.m, take half an hour to look at what I want to look at, to think about it, to write my report, grab a few screenshots, put them up. There's still a couple of hours before really dark. Sometimes it's up to 3. So in that time, anything could have happened, like what I've said in my report could have gone AWOL, and it often does. And then it occurs in the early hours of the morning and often around daylight. So I'm pretty sure there was a storm warning come out this morning, probably after daylight by a long way, about 5-6 this morning. But
it was middle of the day for us too.
Yeah, and so basically I think the best thing for people to do is to watch a couple of things and just look at the colors when they change from green to orange to red to purple and so on. That indicates the intensity. You don't need to know any numbers. You don't need to know about BT and BZ, because you get a general feel for what's happening. And you can do that through Glendale, Space Weather Live, and some of the apps. But and I guess we use those because they are live updates and they're updating every few minutes.
Margaret?
I think as far as advice is concerned, I would suggest anyone wanting to start an admin group would have a goal in mind. My goal was to let people know when an aurora was happening, because I'm not a scientist. I don't consider myself a photographer. I was just somebody wanting to let people know when they could see an aurora. So my approach and my updates will be less scientific than Les's. So if you want a more scientific approach, you should go visit him because he's always checking the satellites. And whereas I depend heavily on Glendale, and I'm happy to give everyone my procedure for what I do for a nightly update. And it is basically, I'm aware throughout the day of what's happening, and that is often through X, which I call X-Twit. But at any rate, so I'm Sarah Halseal, Tamitha, various people, whatever the oh gosh, the Halo guy. Yeah. Anyway.
Halo, yeah.
Thank you. So I'm basically checking them through the day, and then so I'm aware if sort of something seems to be bubbling, And then, so when it comes to evening, I basically, if it's getting anywhere near dark, I check New Zealand. And that's really fun because, they're a couple of hours ahead in darkness, and I can see if anything seems to be happening there. Because Les and I are basically at the same magnetic latitude. So, it's a great little cheat. But the first thing I do on Glendale is I look at the last 24 hours. I see what's been happening in the rest of the world. I look at the maps in the rest of the world to see if the event I've been hearing about, how it has been playing out as far as sightings are concerned. Then I look at the Glendale graphs at Earth at the last 24 hours and see what seems to be happening there. And all of this is just going into my mental, data processing thing where, it's what I'm taking into consideration before I actually say what I think may happen. But in the end, I end up telling people, we have no idea what's going to happen. And I try to say that every night. After I've said sort of what I feel like has been happening and what it looks like could happen, I list the forecast, the official forecast, which I get from the Met Office and NOAA. And I sort of change their wording slightly. When they say that something's going to happen, I say it may happen. So I'm constantly translating their predictions into being a little more vague because, I don't like sending people out or even implying they should go out unless there's a very good chance that something's going to happen. So, then through the night, I'll be checking New Zealand as it begins getting more dark. And, other than that, I'm just basically regurgitating what's happening on Glendale. So you don't really need me.
I think Margaret and I are pretty similar in terms of we look at certain things, we make up a story and away we go. But it's all about just trying to give people a genuine indication of what we feel might happen during the night. And for me, I'm probably up till midnight most nights, and I will check things more randomly, more often if it's looks like it's going to be big, or if it's not very much at all, I'll check it every hour or two and go from there. And sometimes I put up an update, and I did throw up one this morning. Over to you.
Okay. How about you, Ian? What's your strategy for chasing?
Yeah, I'm fairly basic. I've been using just spaceweather.com. I always go in and just check with the solar wind speed, the BZ, things like that. Then I jump over and have a look at one of the, I think it's GOES 16, see what that's doing. If I can see it diving down and there's going to be a rebound, then that's a good chance that there's going to be some activity, like ray activity, as opposed to just a general glow or whatever. And then just jump on the sites and see, well, especially the New Zealand one for a starter, because it's it's in our time. And if people, then I have a look at it. So if somebody posts a picture from Invercargill, the bottom of the South Island, and it's only like about 10 degrees high, then there's a good chance I won't be seeing much at all from 5 or 6 degrees north of there. So but when I see something that's going halfway up the sky and over 100 degrees wide, then I think, what am I doing? Look at this computer. I should be outside and taking photos. So that's the sort of, I'm pretty rudimentary as far as that goes. I've usually got a pretty good idea that there's activity coming, but I've also learned through a lot of experience that some of the predictions don't pan out because things don't quite turn up the way that the satellites might lead us to believe. And with only really an hour's warning, you can be out there and then not much happens, and then like Lee's last night, right at the very end, something goes through, and that's that perseverance that you got to have in this game, is to stick around, because it's I always compare it to an old advertisement for a chocolate bar called Kit Kats, where a photographer's trying to photograph two panda bears that are hiding in their little cave at the zoo, and they're looking out to see whether you're looking over the parapet, and in the end he sits down and eats a Kit Kat, and next minute the two pandas come out and they dance and they frolic and they run around all over the place, and they, really amazing. And then they jump back inside their little cave, and he gets up from the Kit Kat and looks over, not much happening. And that's, to me, is like somebody going in, only popping out during advert breaks on TV to see whether the aurora's happening. And the time that you've been watching your favourite program, unfortunately, the aurora's already done her thing, and it's all over. So you're better off just recording the program and sticking it out and staying out in the cold.
Yes, Margaret.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to this North Island of New Zealand, because you are our early warning system for being able to see it as far north as Sydney.
That's right.
That's really lovely. I can just look at the little Glendale map, and if there's little green ticks up there, I say, it's up to mid-latitudes, guys. Congratulations. Go out.
Very nice. All right. So one of the
Apologize
things...
for sending you our weather. I apologize. New Zealand can see the bad weather coming because we get it first.
Oh.
So, sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately.
So, a slightly different question. For North America chasers, when we are chasing in remote areas, we have to be mindful of wildlife. A friend of mine told me a story about her shooting Aurora on one side of the lake and wolves were howling on the other. There's moose, there are bears, particularly in Canada, and some of the tours actually are heavily guarded because white bears can easily mistake you for snack. What about Australia and New Zealand? What kind of things have you run into as far as wildlife?
New Zealand's pretty good, really. We don't have any snakes. We don't have any bears. But we do have a few possums that have migrated from Australia. Naughty things they are. They've really decimated the native bush in New Zealand. But I have seen one of those when I've been shooting, but they just crawl around the ground. Maybe the odd hedgehog, no real problem. And that's about it for us, really. Otherwise, it's all good. Margaret.
Nice.
Yeah, we don't have any scary night animals at all.
Other than
Snakes,
humans?
none. No, well, yeah. No, not very many of those, fortunately. But no, snakes hide at night. They're a cold-blooded animal, and they come out in the day to sun themselves. And at night, they're just not a problem at all. I mean, no Tasmanian considers them a problem even in the daytime because they don't like people to run away, slither away. The scariest incident I've had with animals at night were in the early days of chasing when I just had no idea what to do. I was just driving around and realized that, there's an aurora happening. And I pulled over and climbed somebody's fence, and a farmer set their dogs on me.
Oh, well,
All
yeah.
of a sudden, I realized, well, I mean, they didn't get me, but I realized that, I'm in somebody's paddock, not thinking. And, there's a light comes on in the distance, and suddenly there's this bark, 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 coming right at me. And of course, I was out of there fast. That is the only thrilling, animal story I have. Sorry.
So what you're saying is
Amy.
Australia
And we
pretty
have,
much has all the
little
bad
hoppy
ones.
things. We have cute little hoppy things.
Yeah.
Well,
they
have you
might-
caught any of the hoppy things in the Aurora photos? That would be really cool.
Yeah, we do. We get them. Sometimes people get a possum in a tree, and you have to look up our possums. Our possums are cute, even though they have sadly infested New Zealand. They are still cute. They are not, I'm so sorry, North American opossums are not very cute. But ours are adorable looking. They're just still a horrible pest.
Aw. How about Tasmanian devils? Do they come and visit?
No, look, all of our nocturnal creatures are extremely timid. And pictures you see of Tasmanian devils with their mouths open, they have to catch them yawning because they are not. Seriously, those are all pictures of yawning Tasmanian devils if you see them. Look, they're not predators. They, scavengers only. So, they're just, none of them are interested in being around people. So.
And they're clearly not interested in posing on Aurora photo background.
Nope.
I'll have to find you some because we do have a few.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
I'll send them on to you.
Ian, any experience with wildlife, dangerous or
Uh,
otherwise? Cute.
not so much the wild ones, but the domesticated ones. I pulled up in other rural locations and thought, oh, yeah, this is a nice spot, not much happening around here. This will be good. I won't be bothered by people driving past or anything. And one time I pulled up and I didn't realise I was right next to a marshalling yard where there was about 150 cattle beasts who got very excited about me being there. And then they started making an unholy noise, the whole lot of them. And I suddenly realised that that's probably going to wake up everybody in the rural neighbourhood, and I'll probably better move on to somewhere else. So I went somewhere else and pulled up in another spot, and some more cattle were in this paddock, and you just can't see them at night. And then they saw me with my torch flashing around, getting set up and all the rest of it. And next minute they all come charging down right next to me, and I thought, if they don't stop, they're just going to run right over the top of me. So, yeah, that's about all we really have. I mean, around here there's sheep in the paddock just outside my house because I live on a farm. When I'm out doing photography, they'll be wandering around, but they don't really get in the photos. So no, nothing too wild.
How about cute?
Oh yeah, very cute, but they sort of actually there's a security camera down the driveway now, and the other night when I was out doing some other photography, they kept on going past and setting the light off, and it was almost like they were posing. I think that's where they must have realised that they were going to be on the security camera, so they had that sort of cute sort of bar lamb sort of view, and it would have been an interesting check of the cameras the next day to see what was causing all the activity, but it was only the local sheep.
I was a story of a seal jumping at somebody when they were standing on a dock.
Oh wow.
A photo, a seal kind of jumped towards them, and that was a bit scary, but I think they dropped their finger in the water actually. So that was bad.
Those are big creatures.
Yeah.
Those are not to be messed around with.
There's one thing I've forgotten, and that was sea lions at a location called Waipapa Lighthouse. They come up at night from the beach, and they come up some quite steep slopes, and they sleep in the grass. You've got to watch when you go to Waipapa Lighthouse that you've actually checked the location before you go there. In the dark, you've got to carry a torch with you and check it all out, and just to make sure there's none around. Otherwise, you give them a wide berth.
That's funny. No, what I'm learning here, and actually it tracks with Adrian was telling me a story because they went to Australia and then New Zealand. In Australia, everybody was like, you have to be careful where you're going all the time, and not so much in New Zealand. It's like you're much safer on the the littler island.
Yeah.
Yeah, the main thing to know about Tasmania is that besides being half the size of the South Island of New Zealand, half of it is national park or World Heritage Area.
Oh.
And so, unfortunately, people decide to go walking in these areas and are never seen again.
Oh no.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry. We're talking, this happens if I live fairly, only about 20 minutes south of Hobart, but we never have an aircraft go overhead here, never, unless it's a rescue helicopter headed towards the Southwest Wilderness. So, it can happen weekly that, some hapless tourist will head out, completely unprepared for what complete wilderness is like. So, I'm just going to throw that out there because, I went on the overland track, which is an 8-day hike, not recently. But, people sometimes set off on these things thinking that there's going to be some place to buy food along the way.
Right.
There isn't. There isn't. It's wilderness. So just, in case there are any aspiring bushwalkers, headed this direction, please, check local information and be prepared. So, and I was caught in a blizzard in the middle of summer on my beginning of my overland track experience. So that was, in the Alpine area, but you know, you have to be prepared for the unexpected, and we love it. But you need to know.
Well, I think that applies to just about any nighttime ventures too. Do not go into a territory or terrain that you do not know during the day, because that can be very dangerous. You just don't know where, even if you know it, still carry a torch and just make sure you know where you're stepping. It could be an animal, or it could be a ravine, so you just can't be too sure. Safety first. Aurora can wait. Nobody got injured by not catching Aurora and being safe, but people have definitely suffered some unfortunate injuries, and we had an incident very recently when the man was returning from Aurora chasing party and got into a really bad ATV accident. So that was, yeah. Who thought the nighttime sky viewing could be potentially dangerous?
It can.
There is one in the lower North Island, in our capital city of Wellington, where on the south coast, where they have totally dark skies, it's a very rocky coast. And 25 years ago, there would have been, like 10 people there. Now there's, they can have hundreds turn up, and a lot of them just turn up on the night, and they don't check the place out during the day. So it's one of those things where people just get so excited they forget about the environment that they're in. And they live in a city, but right on the edge of that city is a very rough, rugged coastline, which is perfect for the Aurora. A great viewing spot. You ask anybody from Wellington, but it's fraught with danger, and it's hard to get the message out to people that they should actually perhaps come and visit the place first and get an idea of what it's like, and not just turn up in the middle of the night and then get into difficulty. So yeah, and I can imagine that happens in a lot of other places.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be my last question, and I think it's going to generate some discussion. But all three of you have been involved in citizen science. How did you get involved, and what would be your advice to other admins and chasers? Les, you want to go first? Or Ian?
Yeah, well, we got involved in citizen science through doing other astronomy in the early years, and being involved in a local astronomical society, which was affiliated with the Royal Astronomical Society of New Zealand. And so you were actually encouraged to submit observations, variable stars, comets, the planets, the sun, and then later on an Aurora and solar section was started in the 1970s when I first got going on the Aurora. And so the thing was, you actually sent your observations into somebody who collated it and then passed it on to the scientists. And that's the same with the variable stars, which is a great tradition in New Zealand. Comet observing, I've been observing comets for nearly 50 years, and submitting observations and now photographs is quite a regular thing. And it's just a way for people who have that scientific bent, if you like, to do something where they feel like they're doing something useful as well as enjoying the spectacle. I mean, it's not everybody's cup of tea in terms of why they do it, but it is quite satisfying. And things like the GBR result would not have come about through professionals, because they just don't have the time, and they don't have, and it's just the sheer numbers of people that are out there that, and even though there are a lot of people, and you might think, oh well, what's the difference if I submit or I don't submit? The biggest problem is that I see is collating it all to make it into something meaningful. And so that's with the sort of rapid fire response of social media, that's actually quite a tricky thing to do, and it could almost be a full-time job, just grabbing all the images and saying, well, here's something, here's an event that was seen from here, there, and there, and you can do something useful. And I believe that's what's happening in the Northern Hemisphere, and to a lesser extent, it's happening down here too. So that's my experience with it, and it's up to the individual whether they really want to go about it that way. But there's people feel quite chuffed when they think they're actually contributing.
Les?
Yes. I think being involved in their science is, from a citizen point of view, is really interesting, and you can get a lot out of it. And you basically get out of anything what you put into it is the way I look at things. So I try and put in my sightings and things to a couple of places. One is the Aurora, I'm trying to think what it's called, Aurorasaurus, and also the Finnish site. I try to put them in there occasionally.
Sky Warden.
Yeah, Sky Warden, yeah. So I think I got into citizen scientists quite a bit. I actually met up with Maxime Grandman, I think that's his last name. When he was here in New Zealand, he was studying at the Otago University, and we ended up, I think he contacted me through watching the Facebook page, and then we chatted and we met up. And from there, I ended up in the Arctics program when they were looking for images and stuff. And I've got to know quite a number of people, including Donna from Canada and so on, and Katie Hurlingshaw from the Arctics program. We've communicated a lot, and with others. And it was really nice to be involved with that. And then as observers, we got invited. They were looking for observers with the satellite project that they put over the North and South Pole, looking at Aurora and its features, and that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, while there was Aurora, we had bad weather here in Southland, so we couldn't do much for them, but we did our best. And so I managed to get a couple of people that might be interested in New Zealand, and so it's been you get a lot out of it. On the Facebook page, there is a book called the Aurora Field Guide, which is out of that program, which has got all the examples of different types of aurora. Fantastic resource, and I believe that they're also looking at putting updates to it from time to time with any new features that they find.
Yep. Thank you. Margaret, how about you?
Yeah, I always feel like I always get imposter syndrome when asked questions like this, because my parents were both scientists, and I don't really feel like I, fit in their category. I think the main interest I've had is, I got invited to talk to the Bureau of Meteorology in Sydney at one point, and none of them had ever seen an aurora. So that was really great, being able to take them photographs of things. But to me, the best part is seeing something that I don't know what it is, and asking them, and they don't know what it is, and they have to come up with what it is. So, that's my definition of a citizen science for me, is, taking sightings to them and saying, what is this? Please, find an explanation for it. So, and I also want to, thank Aurorasaurus for what they do. And, I don't consider myself sciencey at all, so I really appreciate, especially the work of Adrian and Michael Hennikel, and so many people that I could name. Tanya, Christian has been with me forever. Christian is like one of my mentors since like 2013. How old would he have been then?
That sounds right.
2011. No, it was 2011. So anyway, thank you. I can't thank you enough. But I just, I don't necessarily feel like I've got to completely comprehend all the scientific information. Some people that start out in my group go way beyond me because that's what they're interested in. Like Jessie Ferrari, for instance, she's just, taken off she's way beyond me in scientific stuff. But, again, I come back to my purpose in having a group is to help people catch it. So I try to distribute as much information as is necessary for that end. And, I've got a super busy life and wear a lot of different hats. And if I can do that, I feel very content.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the chat? Otherwise, I think we're good, unless, well, first of all, Yeah, that's right. That's coming.
I
So,
know.
but
I made a
huge thanks from us for coming to the stream. Greatly appreciate it, and it's been fun chatting about Aurora on both sides, north and south, and we just don't learn a lot about Aurora Australis. So appreciate your knowledge and your experience. And
yes, definitely.
Incidentally, in case you don't know, we have a cheat for finding south. I mean, if out when you're out and about, the Southern Cross, which you don't get to see,
Nope.
it's our very special constellation. Like we don't get the North Star. Anyway, so yeah, we can always find south using the Southern Cross.
That's
So
pretty cool. I know.
yeah.
One of these days, I want to get down there, and but I've heard it's interesting with using a tracker because I'm so used to just finding the North Star and it's so easy, and then down there it's like this whole process to find where
Yeah.
you need to point the tracker. So yeah, it's kind of interesting the differences. But well, I guess since there's
it's
no questions,
time.
I can I put everybody's name in this little wheel here that said book. So I'm gonna spin it and we'll see who wins this. So that's what I was doing off camera for a minute.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see. Da, da, da. Oh, looks like it is Andrew Boyd 1020 or 1027. Hold on, there we go. That's who won the book. Can you?
Yay!
Yay!
Right.
Where's he from?
Yeah. First though, I got to make sure that you're not in North America, right? I'll have to look at the chat.
No, look, I've noticed he's been making comments about, that make it sound like he's in Tasmania.
Okay, so good. So
Yeah.
Great.
I just need him to send me an address in probably a private message in Facebook. Hopefully he's in Facebook. Otherwise, I'm not sure how to do this.
Otherwise, message one of us on Facebook,
Yes.
or message Margaret, but do not put your address in YouTube
Yes.
unless you want odd people messaging you and showing up on your doorstep.
yeah.
Look, I'll see if I can find out who he is. Anyway.
He's
Yeah.
good friends with Luke to Shark,
Oh, okay, great. I'll find
All
him.
right.
Well,
Okay,
perfect.
sounds good.
and he's also on our page.
Oh, he's well-rounded then. That's good.
So it shouldn't be a problem. Well, that was simple enough, and I'm glad.
All right.
Yeah. So congrats. I was hoping to get a now it's kind of sad because I can't even order the book because you can't ship it here. Maybe in like 4 years. Just kidding. Okay. Or I just gotta come visit you.
Look, it may work if I send it as a gift. I think the problem was before that, anyway.
It's the commerce part that's
Yeah.
But I thought I thought if it was under $100, it was meant to go anyway, but
But
I got
yeah.
it sent back. I tried again, it's back from the same person twice, so.
Yeah. At that point,
Yeah.
it's just like it's
Alright.
just not worth it. So.
all right. So
So,
I think that's a wrap. So thank you for sticking with us.
Yes,
and,
thank you.
Thank you for being patient with our unplugged nature, which was a little bit more unplugged than usual. Hey, that happens. We're not professionals. We're
I
not
will-
even playing ones on YouTube.
Yeah, I will own that mistake. That was
It's
pretty,
okay.
That was a pretty big one. So thank you guys for hanging out extra long. It's just it's been one of those days, I guess.
It's all right.
But I got I
Okay.
got to really get to know you guys, so I love it. So it's all good. So I guess I will let you all have your evening back. So thank you so much, and we will see you on the interwebs.
Merry Christmas.
Goodbye.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you.
Bye, everybody.